2021 season. Like, I genuinely don't think it's an overstatement to say that Patrick Mahomes had the greatest start to any one quarterback's career ever. And I don't think anyone will ever have a better beginning to their career than Mahomes. But on a frigid January evening at Arrowhead Stadium, the once immortal and seemingly untouched—
You know Bengals fans still bring this shit up. Lamar don't have no AFC championship, bro. Josh Allen don't have no AFC championship. Gang, y'all lost the Super Bowl. That's all that matters. The Super Bowl. Huh? Alright.
Patrick Mahomes choked away the AFC.
Like, unsufferable ass Bengals fans, they still bring this shit up and it's annoying, gang. And I fuck with Joe Burrow because I'm an LSU fan. I want Joe Burrow to win the Super Bowl
game in a manner we have never seen before. And this video is sponsored by
Like, don't nobody care about no AFC championship wins, gang. If you ain't win the Super Bowl, bro, that shit don't matter. I understand Lamar and Josh Allen never held that trophy yet.
Now, heading into the 2021 NFL season, Patrick Mahomes was, I guess, coming off of a low point in his career. After the embarrassment of Super Bowl 55, where Tom had a little bit to say in that game, but yeah, he couldn't get the Chiefs into the end zone a single fucking time, and I guess going into this next season, he now had more motivation than ever before, and a Patrick Mahomes with motivation is a dangerous Patrick Mahomes, believe it or not. So Mahomes' legacy had already taken a punch.
God damn, this picture crazy, what the fuck?
In potential all-time debates with Tom Brady, because now Tom had this win over him for the rest of his career.
Gang, it's a team sport. Shut up with that.
And people expected 2021 Patrick Mahomes to unleash his rage onto the NFL.
I can't stand it. Bro, Brady beat Mahomes. Gang, this nigga had a top 5 defense his whole career. It's a team sport. That defense beat Mahomes.
But it wasn't an ideal start, as the Chiefs started out 3-4, and people were beginning to panic. But luckily for them, they got to play against us twice, which is fucking fantastic, so yeah, that ended up
you a Raiders fan?
Sparking an 8-game win streak, and I'm really glad we could help out. I always love helping out the Chiefs. Fuck me, man. And of course, at 11-4 at one point, the Chiefs were set to play their penultimate game of the season against none other than the Cincinnati Bengals, who were leading the AFC North and were surprisingly improving at a very fast rate in just Joe Burrow's second season, because they just picked up a rookie by the name of Jamar Chase, a sophomore receiver, and T. Higgins was also developing, and they were a complete team. Their defense was a little bit suspect. One day they
defense been trash.
Be allowing 40+ points to be dropped on them by Baker Mayfield or Justin Herbert, only to absolutely clamp the Ravens and Steelers. So remember, this was the first 18-week regular season in NFL history as well. So when the Chiefs headed to Cincinnati in week 17, although they had already secured a playoff spot, they still needed to get home field advantage. So this game meant a ton. And the Chiefs got off to a hot start. They jumped out to a 21-7 lead early in the second quarter, with Kelsey, Tyreek, and Mahomes doing the usual things. And it seemed like all was well. Until Jamar Chase just went absolutely fucking nuclear. He had 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. And once Tyler Boyd caught the go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter, Harrison Butker was able to tie the game, but was ultimately one-upped by Evan McPherson. Money Mac, with balls of steel, sent the reigning conference champions packing with a walk-off field goal. And this was really just a magical season by the Bengals, which I've also made a video on, but yeah, the Chiefs were worried about this Bengals team. With the score of 31...
Yeah, this ain't no rivalry game. This was a one-season thing. This not no rivalry, Bengals fans.
1-34 doesn't seem that bad on
y'all
paper.
Y'all niggas don't own the Chiefs. I be saying y'all don't own the Chiefs. Stop it.
But it was a complete shit show, because that Harrison Butker field goal was their only points of the entire second half. The Bengals did to the Chiefs what the Chiefs do to everyone else. They came back and stole the game, and Jamar Chase was the main reason for this, but Patrick Mahomes was relatively quiet in the second half. But, you know, yes, people were a little bit worried and kind of were like, well, that's not like Patrick Mahomes, but, you know, whatever. They're still in the playoffs. They're going to beat whoever runs into them, right? Now, with the new playoff format, the number 1 seed was even more important, because it was the only means of securing a first-round bye. And at this point, the Chiefs were still well in the race for the number 1 seed. But, you know, were they really going to be able to do that with the offense putting up 0 points in the second half? And yeah, it ended up not being enough, because with that loss, they ended up with the number 2 seed in the AFC, which meant they had to play in the wild card. But luckily, the Pittsburgh Steelers were there, so they enjoyed their free fucking win. Thanks for that, Mike Tomlin. Much appreciated. So yeah, they dropped 42 points on the Steelers, scoring 35 unanswered, average Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs stuff. And then in the divisional round, the famous 13-second Bills game would happen. And I also made a whole separate video on this, which is genuinely one of the greatest games ever played. But yeah, these were two of the best teams in the AFC and in the NFL just going blow for blow. Mahomes versus Allen. It was fucking amazing. And Patrick Mahomes...
Yo, watching that live was crazy.
...cemented one of the most iconic moments in his legacy in this very game. And he would move on to the AFC Championship game, and it seemed inevitable that they were going to slaughter who was waiting for them in that game as well. Because the team waiting for them was the Cincinnati Bengals, who beat a fraudulent number 1 seeded Titans team and the Raiders earlier, so no one was really taking them that seriously. Sure, it was a good story to get to this point, but this is the fucking Kansas City Chiefs we're talking about. In Arrowhead, they are going to get their shit rocked. Nobody had beaten Patrick Mahomes in the AFC in the playoffs other than Tom Brady. So what was Joe Burrow gonna do?
Yeah, during that time, Joe Burrow was the only nigga other than Tom Brady to beat Patrick Mahomes. So I see why you Bengals fans and you Burrow fans was talking crazy. Talking about some y'all own the Chiefs and Joe Shiesty.
Well, in the first half of this game, it didn't look like a whole lot, to be honest with you, because the Chiefs came flying out of the gate and surged to a 21-3 lead in front of their home crowd. Everything Mahomes touched turned to gold. Each of their first 3 drives resulted in touchdowns. This Bengals defense had no answer, and it looked like this game was going to be over in the early third quarter. It was what they always do. They just completely destroy other teams' soul, and the Bengals seemed dead in the water. But remember, this is a Cincinnati team that did the same thing to the Chiefs in Week 17. Yes, they have been in holes like this before, but you know what? Maybe it wasn't over yet. Because late in the second quarter, Samaje Perine took a check down 41 yards to the house because, I don't know, the Chiefs defense just gave up and wanted to give them a fighting chance or something? I don't know. I don't know what the hell happened here. And this play also
skip that prize pick shit.
Had a lot of interesting parallels to one of those Jamar Chase touchdowns from just a few weeks earlier. So although there was some not great feelings from Chiefs fans about this touchdown, they thought that Mahomes would respond back and come out in the second half ready to go. But what ensued was the greatest meltdown of Patrick Mahomes' career. So, in order to respond, Patrick Mahomes took the Chiefs right down the field as usual, all the way down to Cincinnati's 15. Then they even got a pass interference call that put them on the 1-yard line with 9 seconds to go before halftime. So, this is a great chance to get some points before the half and just demoralize the Bengals of any hope of winning this game. The first pass was incomplete, which meant that there wasn't enough time, so they just settled for a field goal, except they decided to go for it, which I don't even think is the worst decision in the world, and they ended up giving it to Tyreek Hill, who was stopped. So they ended up missing out on free points, and yeah, this would cost them. On their first drive of the third quarter, Mahomes and the offense came out completely flat and they punted. So instead of extending their lead to 25, they had to settle for 11, which seemed fine when both teams exchanged punts again, but this got a bit worrying when the Bengals got a field goal to make it just a one-possession game now. And Mahomes just couldn't put it together because 311-pound BJ Hill tipped and intercepted a Mahomes pass at the line of scrimmage, and Cincinnati's offense got a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and all of a sudden this game that was a complete boat race just a few minutes ago was tied at 21, and everyone in the crowd now had this sinking feeling of, oh shit, are we gonna fucking...
that nigga Mahomes, well, it's rare that he choking. He's starting to look a little different now. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully he get back to that form, but...
collapse again.
You know, Tom Brady went on a Super Bowl drought. You know what I'm saying? Eli Manning. That didn't win a Super Bowl for like 10 years.
The Bengals, we can't do this. So all eyes turn to Mahomes, because this can't happen to the immortal man himself. It has never happened to him before. He's never turned down a big moment. And then Mahomes...
Well, who was Mahomes talking too crazy like that? Looking crazy like that? You know you don't be doing that.
Mahomes got the ball back and just decided to not throw the ball away? Like, what is he doing? This is so unlike him. And I don't even know if this was a choke, more of he just forgot that he was playing football? It was really odd. And they ended up giving the ball back to Joe Burrow, who threw a pick on the first play of the next possession. So this was a perfect chance. Now Mahomes could put the dagger into the souls of his opponent like he always did, but then...
Thank you for going over this game. So really, the Bengals only won this game because Patrick Mahomes was choking. Niggas be talking like Joe Burrow owned Patrick Mahomes. Joe Burrow threw an interception this game. Patrick Mahomes just was tweaking this game. So thank you for showing us.
They got sacked.
Cause they delusional Bengals fans, and I don't got no problem with no Bengals fans. Y'all in the AFC, I'm in the NFC. I'm a Saints fan, but
Again,
I be seeing these niggas talking crazy on Twitter. We own Mahomes. We own the Chiefs.
just don't know what else to say. This ended up leading to the Bengals getting a 24-21 lead after a field goal, and we were running out of time. But this was still prime Patrick Mahomes territory. If you give him the ball back deep in the fourth quarter, he can win you any football game, as he has done before this game and since this game. And it took just 5 plays to get into Bengals territory. And from there, we already knew that they could tie this game, so that was inevitable. But they bled the clock, worked their way down into the red zone, and it felt like a matter of time before the Chiefs would score the go-ahead touchdown and win the Super Bowl. First and goal. With a minute and a half left, they got 1 yard, which isn't bad. And then second and goal, Mahomes dropped back and took another sack. Okay, I guess, at least the clock is still running, so there's something there, and they're gonna go to overtime, but no fucking way. He fumbled on third and goal. If Joe Thuney hadn't recovered that shit, Mahomes would have never heard the end of this. But this play is largely forgotten because of what comes afterwards. Harrison Butker ended up making a 44-yarder, which shouldn't have been that difficult, and now it was time for overtime. Patrick Mahomes obviously won the coin toss, because why not? And he then proceeded to throw his second interception of the game into double coverage in overtime. And this was it.
Dang, the Tyreek Hill, the little man, the little receiver game. The fuck you thought he was, Randy Moss? Nigga thought he was about to get up and snag that like Mahomes. What the fuck?
This was his last chance, because Joe Burrow led the Bengals down the field into field goal range, and Money Mac made the field goal. And the Cincinnati Bengals delivered Patrick Mahomes his biggest choke of his entire career, and one of the craziest upsets we've seen in the past few decades. And although Mahomes' first half stats are pretty amazing, his second half stats were downright disastrous. And I really don't think he will ever play a game this poorly again. It was just so uncharacteristic that it happened on a stage like this one, because in the second half, he went...
Yeah, I don't know, maybe that nigga had the shit or something, like maybe the boy had the dookie, you know, he a human, maybe that boy got nervous this time, I don't know.
8 for 15 with 50...
You know it's gonna be the conspiracy theorists, this was a script. This was a script.
5 yards, 0 touchdowns.
They had to make the second year QB Joe Burrow beat the top dog in the NFL. It was a script.
Pick and was sacked 4 times. And he had just 17 yards in the entire third quarter. And in overtime, he didn't have a single yard and threw an additional interception. So it's just like when you're watching a show and the character is just doing decisions that they would never make usually. It's just like a writing flaw that this game even happened in the first place. And I know you could argue that the Super Bowl versus Tampa and the second one versus the Eagles are Mahomes' worst postseason performances overall, but if we're talking about the worst choke job of his entire career...
Yeah, he ain't really choking them games. His O-line and his wide receivers wasn't getting open. Even though, yeah, in the Eagles game, he did throw 2 interceptions, but his receivers wasn't open.
It has to be the 2022 AFC Championship game. His offensive line is not to blame here. His weapons were not to blame here. He threw 3 touchdowns in the first half. He had this shit in the bag, but every single time he had the opportunity to wrap this game up, he choked. That's the only way to put it. Even when his kicker bailed him out of what should have been a season-ending disaster play, Mahomes lobbed a fucking meatball into double coverage, which is...
Tyreek Hill, the 5'9", nigga.
Just not like him. And I would argue there has never been a game where the pressure got to Mahomes quite like this, and this is going to be a stain on his resume for the entirety of his career. But
Yeah, because Bengals fans still bring that shit up. That's the Super Bowl. Bro, we own Bones, bro. Make sure to come subscribe and all deuces.